Today I'm going to talk about a little application I whipped up called PythonTA, and it is an AI agent that is embedded into my Canvas shell. And I'm going to talk about how I approached this from a technical standpoint, but also why I think this is important uh, from an equity perspective in terms of rounding out student learning. So first, a little bit about me. I'm in my 27th year at Bakersfield College. About 18 of those years have been in the classroom. The balance has been in different administrative roles or leadership roles. I recently retreated back to the classroom, where I am thoroughly enjoying being back in contact directly with students and able to work on some projects that I had been itching to do while I was in administration. In addition to that, I spent 21 years at Pepperdine's Graduate School of Education and Psychology, teaching in the learning technologies program. So my background is computer science and learning technology, and I've been told many times by many people that I have too many interests for my own good. If you want to sample those, you can check out my website at bmosley.com. I kind of document some of the stuff that I'm working on and interested in there. But mostly I'm interested in my family. This is them. I have 7 kids plus some significant others. And if you look closely enough, you'll see my first grandbaby in that picture. I grew up an only child in a single parent household. So having a big family is something that's always been sort of interesting to me. And the youngest one in that picture, aside from my grandson, my youngest son is in the Snoopy shirt toward the middle of the picture. He's from Haiti. And Haiti is another lifelong interest of mine. My wife and I have been doing humanitarian and relief work in Haiti for the last 25 years or so. And we eventually adopted our youngest son from Haiti. And so we continue to keep track of that nation as it goes through many ups and downs. If you follow the news, it's been really rough there lately, but we're still in contact with people on the ground there. And then the final big interest of my family is swimming. And the center lane here in the yellow cap is my oldest daughter swimming at national championships and later went on to swim at Olympic trials. So a lot of scholarships and collegiate swimming and also some club swimming as well. But all 7 of my kids are swimmers. And so we spend a lot of time out at the pool. If I can set the context for PythonTA a little bit, and what I'm going to talk about. I teach an introduction to Python programming course. Python is a programming language that is great for sort of beginning level students. Advanced folks use it too, but it's a great beginner's language. So we use that as an introduction to coding course. So I get a lot of students with no coding experience in that course. I teach it via distance education, as well as face-to-face. And I use a lot of authentic assessment, authentic learning techniques. All of my assignments map directly to SLOs, and my course is using an OER textbook as well. So I'm really trying to hit the learning and equity angles from other perspectives. Like I said, these are very beginning students as well. And so I have a lot of folks in there who honestly can't even use their computer in some cases, or can barely use a computer. And in many of those cases, they end the class with the ability to write their own computer programs. So it's kind of cool. Our students, and I'm sure if you work in the community colleges, I don't need to tell you all of these things, but just as a reminder, our students, statistically speaking, have higher work demands. They have more life responsibilities, including the care for significant others, children, parents, aging grandparents. They tend to come from lower income families with less college experience. And the final thing I want to point out and bring out in this conversation is that distance education is really sort of a misnomer for a lot of our students who are taking online classes, um, because it's not really distance that's the issue for most of our students. For most of our students who are taking online asynchronous classes, the issue is really time, and specifically timing. Our students often work full-time jobs or care for kids or have all these other responsibilities in their life. And what we found when we got into the numbers at Bakersfield College is that the vast majority of our distance education students actually live a short drive from campus. And many of them actually took a combination of on campus and online classes. And even when they were taking fully online classes, often came to campus to use campus resources in person. So our student profile is really somebody who's very busy, somebody who has a lot of responsibilities, and can't always show up during business hours. So the obstacles to learning here um, are that their schedules make it difficult or even sometimes impossible to attend office hours in person, and even Zoom during office hours. The late working schedules for many of my students means that they might be working on an assignment at midnight and come to a place where they have a question and need to ask that question before they can proceed with the assignment. And so that's problematic for my students. And specifically, it's problematic for the students who really need it the most. And then on the other end of this, we have the sort of what I would call the AI everywhere trend. And you can find AI now in your web browser and in Microsoft Word, and even in our coding environments, there's embedded AI that will tell you how to write your code as you're writing it. So our students are being pushed by progress toward using AI for all of their work and all of their assignments, but it's just sort of this generic, very open-ended AI. And the problem with the generic open-ended AI is that it is specifically geared toward providing them with solutions. And as we all know, the learning is in the struggle to come up with your own solutions. And so if we jump over that, if we jump over that process of learning and struggling and figuring things out, then we have done the students a disservice. So out of the box, our normal AI robs students of the valuable work that they need to do in order to learn. So how does this come down to an equity issue? The truth is, access to doing college as a full-time student, where you can be on campus and where you can access those campus services during regular business hours and show up at office hours and hang out in the library and study and go to the student union and eat in the cafeteria. I mean, all of that picture of college that we have is becoming an increasingly rare privilege as we bring more and more students into our collegiate environment. And so the ability to work on homework during open business hours is a privilege as well. And that privilege, unfortunately, is for those who are privileged. In other words, it's not available to our students who are coming from impoverished homes, or they are first generation college students necessarily, who in our case in Bakersfield and Kern County, who are out working in the fields sometimes during the days and caring for elderly parents and grandparents and children and siblings, and just have these pressing responsibilities. A lot of my students are logging in because they have to late at night. And as much as I would love to stay up all night and have open office hours in the middle of the night to assist them, my ability to do that is obviously limited. And so what the bottom line is the students who need extra time from me and extra help from me are the ones who tend to be the least able to access that, especially in a distance ed environment. Those who come to class usually have at least the ability to interact with me before and after class. But those students who are really crunched on time and are just taking some online classes to try and complete their education however they can are the ones who are least able to access that help. And so I began thinking about what can I do as a professor to sort of clone myself in a sense, and at the same time, sort of take some ownership of what access or what artificial intelligence software my students are using. And so I've developed, using the PlayLab platform, a application called PythonTA. And PythonTA is my AI teaching assistant. It is embedded into my Canvas shell, and it will do exactly what I want it to do in terms of helping me instruct students in the way that I would want to instruct them. Specifically, it can help them understand their code. It can help them understand the assignments. It can provide them with information about the class. But what it won't do is do their homework for them. Now, can they still go out and use ChatGPT? Of course they can. I try very hard to make the case for them using PythonTA rather than ChatGPT. And it works relatively well, I think, for most of my students, because they do want to learn how to program, and they know that if they just get the answers, they're not going to learn. So, and this is a relatively new. I launched it. I did a soft launch in the middle of last semester, and this is my first full semester using this. And I'm doing some data collection right now on the efficacy and also the usage of this product. So again, it's built on the PlayLab.ai platform. PlayLab is a platform that takes some of the large language models like ChatGPT, and it actually builds a layer on top of those models. It uses the ChatGPT API, for example, and it creates an intermediate step between the end user and the model itself, so that you can provide what I would call guardrails and additional instructions and things like that to help shape the behavior of the end result. And so you have a chat client, or where they can have a conversation, but it's been given specific instructions. And so the instructions that I give it are that I load it with all my course materials, including my OER book. The entire book is loaded. Lecture transcripts, Canvas material, the syllabus, due dates, and assignment details. And then I give it instructions to give it to limit what the PythonTA does, and it gives no solution. It will not give code answers to students, and it follows a Socratic dialogue guidelines in terms of how it instructs and interacts with students. So it really won't give answers. It will just ask questions. And in terms of the instructional pieces, it will give, if a student says, when's assignment 3 due, it will give that sort of answer, but it will not give answers in code. And I'll show you an example of that shortly. I'll actually demo it for you. So what it can do, it can answer functional questions, it can review code, it can give hints and ask guiding questions. And the best part about it is that I can embed it straight into my Canvas shell. And so it actually is right there at their fingertips when they go into Canvas. It's mobile friendly and it works great on a desktop, and so it works rather well. Some tips for training an AI-based TA that I've sort of learned over the years or the last year rather, you want to provide explicit data in terms of what you want it to do, what you want it to not do. I very explicitly give it assignment due dates, and it's not very effective at inference from a larger pool of data. So if I just give it my syllabus, for example, which my syllabus sort of contains things like course policies and contact hours and office hours and things like that, it tends to lose some of its specificity. And so when I provide it more explicit data, like assignment one is due at this time, it actually gives students higher quality answers. So I think explicit data is important in training it. Very detailed parameters in terms of what to do, what not to do. You sort of have to, it's odd, but you have to sort of treat it like a child in terms of giving it very detailed, very explicit instructions. Also, test it every way you can possibly think of. And when I soft launched this, I actually asked students to help me test it and give me feedback. And that was useful as well, because they certainly think of things that I won't. And I would say the fourth piece of this is to gather data, and that is what I'm doing right now. I think the data that I gathered this semester in terms of feedback, usage, efficacy, what students are asking it, and the answers it gives, and I can access all of that through PlayLab, will help me shape it in the future to be more useful. And then if there are no questions at this point, I was going to jump over and sort of demo what I have there. Are there any questions at this point? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to jump over to my interface here. And this is the PythonTA, just the app. And I'm going to show you in my course here in Canvas. This is the PythonTA right here on the homepage of the website. So it's the same thing. I'm going to just use the larger one because it's a little bit bigger window, but this is what it looks like inside the course. So students can access and interact with it right there. In fact, if I start it here, you can see the conversation just takes place right in here. And students can even upload a screenshot of their programming code if they want to have that reviewed. So starting here in the big window, I can ask it things like, when are office hours? And it will give my office hours. I can ask it things like, when is assignment 3 due? And it will give detailed instruction, and you can see it's very conversational. And I've told it to be upbeat and friendly. When I told it to have a good sense of humor, it kept telling really bad dad jokes. So I removed that instruction after a bit of testing because it was getting kind of annoying, even to me. And I love a good dad joke. So the other thing we can do here is I can take some programming code, and you may or may not know programming, but this code is actually going to generate an error if I run this. So if I copy and paste that code directly into the interface, I can say something like, I'm having trouble with this code. Paste it in there. And it will start a dialogue with me. And you can see it says something about the data type here, which is the source of the error. But it asks me to think through some of this stuff in a specific way. And if I say something like, can I just, or how about this, can you just fix my code. And it says I understand it can be tempting to want a quick fix, but part of learning to code is figuring out the solution yourself. So it'll redirect all day long and not allow for any sort of answers. Whereas if I was in like a chat GPT, let's just jump over to that. Actually, I'll just use the client here. That's a little faster. If I use chat GPT and I put that code in there without any instructions, it's going to just give me the code right here. So it gives me the code without me even asking for it. And that's sort of the default of all of our AI now is just to give answers. Because most of the time, let's be honest, that's what people want. They just want the answer. And so that's what I don't want my students having. And obviously they still have access to it. Everybody does. But I actually find that if I frame this as a way for students to get help in figuring things out without having to give up the answer, what I found is that students are willing to engage with it in that way because they actually do want to learn. I think the idea that students are just trying to get it over with and don't really want to learn is sort of it's an unhealthy way to look at students, and it sort of harms my ability to engage with them in a productive way. So at the beginning of the class, I tell my students, I trust you. I trust that you are here to learn, and my job is to make sure that you learn those things. So here are the tools that you can use for that purpose. So that's kind of the bulk of my presentation. I was hoping that folks would have some questions or comments. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Would you like to see anything else? Would you like to see maybe I can show you the PlayLab interface if folks don't want to, if you don't have any comments. All right, so I'm going to jump over to the PlayLab and I'm going to show you what that looks like behind the scenes. And if I go into edit that, you can see here a window that shows a testing session for that app. I can also choose here from several LLMs. I use ChatGPT 4.0, but Claude 3.5 Sonnet is pretty good for this sort of thing. And I would encourage folks to try some things out. And variability, if you wanted to say the exact same thing to every student every time, you choose 0, and 100 is the most creative. I like 60%. Again, that's sort of a trial and error thing. And then the other pieces of this are I'm giving it, here are my background instructions. Okay. I'm telling it that it's an expert in both programming and Socratic teaching methods, a helpful, humorous teaching assistant in Bill Mosley's Python course. There's 2 roles. Here are some things to review. I have it review the Socratic method. I have it review the syllabus, the textbook. I give it a workflow and conversation rules. Again, I said mild humor. When I said very humorous or funny, it was making too many dad jokes. And then I also give it a set of references. So very explicit assignment due dates, my syllabus again as a document, and my office hours. And those are, again, very, very explicit. Let me just show you the assignment due dates really quick. And then you can see what that looks like. And you can see it's just very, very specific information, very distilled. Because if there's too much narrative in this, then it sort of gets lost and confused. So I just have it very, very explicit. And I've found that that provides me with a much better response. And so that's kind of it. And as I make changes to it, I just republish that. And then of course it has a QR code generator, a published link, and then the embed code is what I use to embed that in Canvas. And so that's kind of a tour of the PythonTA interface from the backside, I suppose. Um, and that's really kind of it as far as the ins and outs of using that as part of my support to student learning in the class. Are there any questions at this point? All right. Well, thank you all. And at this point, I think I'm wrapped up with the material I have. So where do you find PythonTA? Oh, I can give you a link. Let's see. Let me put a link in the chat here. Give me 1 second to grab that. Here's that. And here is the link to my website, which also has a link to the course materials and everything else. Nice. Thanks, everybody. Are there any other questions before I wrap up the event? Oh, waitlist for PlayLab. There wasn't a wait for me. I was part of one of their pilot cohorts. And I think they might still be doing stuff through the chancellor's office. I don't know if you're familiar with Fabiola Torres at Glendale College. She is working with PlayLab and also is sort of an AI liaison for the California Learning Lab. So she would be somebody to get in touch with and probably has some insider knowledge on how to get into maybe another cohort with PlayLab. And I'll put her name, Fabiola Torres. There we go. Yep, you bet. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody, and have a great rest of the conference.